how to reprogram your mind to think like a millionaire. Imagine waking up tomorrow with the same knowledge, same skills, same environment, but with one change. Your mind now operates like a millionaire's. How different would your choices be? What would you say yes to? Or finally say no to? How would you carry yourself, negotiate, plan, and dream? The truth is, millionaire thinking isn't about luck, privilege, or even talent. It's about programming, mental wiring, a set of patterns that shape how you perceive, decide, and act in the world. You see, most people live on autopilot. They think like employees, even when they're entrepreneurs. They think in terms of limits when abundance is surrounding them. They unconsciously reject opportunities because deep inside, their minds are coded for survival, not prosperity. And that's why this video exists. Because when you learn to reprogram your mind, you unlock the same thought frequencies that the world's wealthiest people, from Elon Musk to Oprah Winfrey, live by. You stop chasing money and start attracting it. You stop trying to earn abundance and begin to embody it. Over the next hour, we'll explore the principles that shift an average mindset into a millionaire one. We'll talk about how neuroscience, quantum focus, emotional mastery, and mental repetition literally rewire your brain to think, decide, and feel wealth. This isn't theory. It's the formula behind people who rise from nothing and build empires. People who were once exactly where you are now. So take a deep breath, because this isn't just a video, it's a mental transformation session. Let's begin. Topic 1. The hidden code behind a millionaire's mind. There's something mysterious about the way millionaires think, almost as if they're playing a different game while everyone else is trying to survive the same old one. But the truth is simpler and far more empowering. Millionaires operate from a different mental code. They've trained their brains to filter reality through the lens of possibility, not limitation. And that code isn't locked. It can be learned, installed, and activated inside your own mind. Think of your brain as the world's most powerful computer. Every thought you think is a line of code. Every emotion is an energy signal reinforcing that code. When you repeat thoughts like, "I can't afford this," "money is hard to make," or "I'll never get ahead," your subconscious mind accepts those commands as truths. And once the subconscious believes something, it acts as your unseen operating system, filtering out opportunities, sabotaging decisions, and proving itself right again and again. Most people live trapped inside this invisible loop, never realizing that the limitation isn't in the world, it's in their programming. But now, imagine if you rewrote that code. Imagine if your internal commands were different. I create opportunities. Money flows to me easily. I make wise, expansive decisions. Suddenly, the same brain that once blocked wealth starts searching for new patterns, ideas, and strategies. The same world looks different. Possibilities that once seemed invisible now stand out as clear, achievable steps. That's not magic. That's neuroplasticity in action. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself, creating new pathways based on what you consistently think and feel. And this is the first truth millionaires understand. Your thoughts are not passive. They are creative forces. Let's take a real example. In 2008, Elon Musk was weeks away from losing everything. Tesla and SpaceX were collapsing under financial pressure. The logical choice would have been to stop, to declare defeat. But his mental code didn't contain the word impossible. His question was never, "Can this survive?" It was, "How can I make it work?" That's the key difference. Millionaires don't ask if, they ask how. Their brains have been trained to convert every threat into a problem-solving loop. Their subconscious rejects hopelessness as incompatible code. And you can learn to do the same. You can reprogram your mind by deliberately changing the language of your thoughts. Start noticing how you speak to yourself about money, success, and worthiness. Do your words shrink or expand your energy? Every time you replace "I can't" with "I can learn," you send a new signal to your subconscious, instructing it to search for evidence of possibility. The more you repeat that command, the stronger that neural pathway becomes, until it becomes automatic. Neuroscience proves this. Your subconscious cannot distinguish between imagination and reality. When you vividly imagine yourself feeling calm while handling large sums of money or confidently negotiating your worth, your brain lights up the same regions that would activate if it were happening for real. This is why visualization is not a fantasy trick. It's a rewiring tool. You are literally sculpting your neural circuits through repetition and emotion. Think about how a self-made millionaire behaves when facing uncertainty. They don't panic. They analyze. They don't ask, "Why me?" They ask, "What's the lesson?" That's because they've trained their minds to interpret reality differently. Where others see endings, they see data. Where others see rejection, they see redirection. Oprah Winfrey turned humiliation into her launchpad. She was told she was too emotional for television, a comment that could have ended her career. Instead, she reframed it. "If emotion is my strength," she thought, "I'll build a platform where emotion leads." That single mindset shift redefined her destiny. That's millionaire thinking in motion, a refusal to accept limitation as final. Every time you consciously shift your perspective, you're sending a new command to your subconscious. I am the creator, not the victim. That shift from reactive to creative consciousness is where transformation begins. Most people are stuck in the effect level of life, waiting for the raise, waiting for the market, waiting for the miracle. Millionaires live at the cause level. They initiate change, design circumstances, and build momentum from vision, not fear. Their belief that they create reality isn't arrogance, it's awareness. Because when you think from cause, you awaken your full potential. Now, let's go even deeper. Money in its purest form is energy. It flows toward clarity, confidence, and purpose. Millionaires don't chase money. They attract it by operating at the same frequency. They respect money. They study it. They manage it with mindfulness. They see money as a mirror reflecting who they are being, disciplined or distracted, expansive or limited. That's why mindset comes before method. You could give two people the same opportunity. One thrives, the other collapses, because the first was mentally prepared to receive abundance, and the second was still wired for scarcity. When you start thinking like a millionaire, you're not just thinking about money. You're thinking from a state of ownership, responsibility, and gratitude. You start to act differently. You speak differently. You become magnetic to success because you radiate certainty, not desperation. And that energy, that state of being, is what draws opportunities, people, and resources toward you. Think of your mind as a frequency tuner. If you tune to scarcity, fear, doubt, envy, you attract more of it. Tune to abundance, gratitude, creativity, confidence, and you start to notice new paths opening. You meet the right people, by chance. You get inspired ideas out of nowhere. That's not coincidence, it's coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, and intentions align, reality responds. This is why reprogramming isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you truly are beneath years of conditioning. You were born creative, powerful, and abundant. You've just been running outdated software. It's time to uninstall it. Every day, practice speaking, feeling, and acting from the version of you who already lives in abundance. Ask yourself, what would the millionaire version of me do right now? Then do it, even in small ways. Bit by bit, the subconscious begins to accept this new identity as truth. And once that happens, your outer world reorganizes itself to match your inner reality. So, the question is no longer whether you can become a millionaire in mind. It's when you'll start thinking like one. Because when you change the way you think, you change the way you feel. And when you change the way you feel, you change the energy you project. That energy becomes action. Action becomes results. And those results, repeated over time, become destiny. Reprogramming your mind to think like a millionaire is not a someday project. It's a daily choice. It's the moment you decide to stop being the passenger of your thoughts and become the driver of your destiny. Once you cross that line, you'll realize something extraordinary. Abundance was never outside you. It was always waiting for you to remember your code. Topic 2. Breaking the scarcity loop: how to delete financial limiting beliefs. There's a moment in every person's journey toward wealth when they realize something shocking. The real enemy was never money. It was their beliefs about money. Those invisible, inherited thoughts that whisper, "You're not ready," "You're not good enough," or "People like you never get rich." This mental loop, the scarcity loop, silently controls 95% of your decisions, actions, and emotions around abundance. And until you break it, you'll keep replaying the same reality. no matter how hard you work or how much you learn. Scarcity isn't just about not having enough. It's a mindset shaped by fear, comparison, and lack of trust in life. It's the feeling that there's not enough to go around, that success for someone else somehow means less for you. But that belief is like a virus in your mental operating system. It hijacks your ability to think expansively. It turns opportunities into threats. It keeps you playing small even when your potential is enormous. Think about where your beliefs about money came from. Most of them weren't consciously chosen, they were inherited. You absorbed them from your parents, teachers, society, religion, or culture. You heard phrases like, "Money doesn't grow on trees," "Rich people are greedy," "Save every penny," or "Be grateful for what you have." And although those words sound harmless, they program your subconscious to fear expansion. They train your mind to believe that safety comes from restriction, not creation. You learn to feel guilty for wanting more. But here's the paradox. Wanting more isn't greed. It's growth. Nature itself expands. The universe is abundance in motion. So why should you be the only part of creation that stays small? To reprogram this, you must first become aware. Awareness is the delete button for limiting beliefs. You can't change what you can't see. So start noticing your internal dialogue whenever money is involved. Do you feel tension when you think about wealth? Do you catch yourself judging others for their success? Do you immediately think, "too expensive," instead of, "how can I afford this?" Each of those reactions reveals a mental pattern, and every pattern can be rewritten. Neuroscience shows that beliefs are stored as neural networks, physical connections in your brain. The more you repeat a belief, the thicker and faster that neural pathway becomes. But here's the empowering truth. Those circuits are not permanent. The moment you question a belief, you weaken its neural dominance. When you emotionally attach to a new idea, a more empowering belief, you begin creating new pathways. That's how transformation happens on a biological level. Let's bring this to life with an example. Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, started with $5,000 in savings and zero experience in fashion. She heard no hundreds of times from manufacturers who didn't believe in her product. Most people would have stopped at the 10th rejection. But Sarah's belief system was different. She was raised by a father who taught her to celebrate failure. Every night at dinner, he would ask, "What did you fail at today?" and then congratulate her for trying. That simple shift deleted her fear of rejection. It reprogrammed her brain to associate failure with progress, not shame. And that mindset made her the world's youngest self-made female billionaire. See the pattern? Limiting beliefs thrive in secrecy and silence. But the moment you bring them to light and challenge them, they begin to dissolve. You can't hold a belief and its opposite with equal emotional intensity. One will always dominate. That's why repetition is critical. To replace scarcity with abundance, you must immerse your subconscious in new evidence. Read stories of people who rose from nothing. Surround yourself with abundance-minded thinkers. Rehearse abundance in your language, your habits, and your imagination until it becomes your new normal. The scarcity loop is also reinforced by emotional memory. Maybe you grew up hearing arguments about money, feeling lack or instability. Those experiences etched emotional pain into your nervous system. So now, whenever you approach higher levels of income, your subconscious triggers anxiety, not because money is bad, but because your brain associates it with conflict or rejection. Breaking this loop requires emotional reconditioning. When you notice that fear, instead of avoiding it, breathe through it. Tell your mind, "I'm safe in abundance." This new emotional pairing, safety plus prosperity, begins to override the old link of fear plus money. And remember, beliefs are not facts. They're interpretations repeated long enough to feel real. The wealthy know this. That's why they guard their mental input like a fortress. They're careful about the conversations they join, the news they consume, the people they listen to. Not because they're arrogant, but because they understand energy contamination. If you let scarcity language enter your mind repeatedly, it becomes part of your internal dialogue. So choose carefully. Protect your frequency. You are the gatekeeper of your mental empire. Look at someone like Warren Buffett. He built his fortune not just by smart investing, but by disciplined thinking. He refuses to let external panic, market crashes, media noise influence his decisions. Why? Because he knows that fear is contagious. Scarcity spreads faster than any virus. But calm, deliberate thinking, rooted in long-term vision, always wins. That's abundance consciousness in action. To delete financial limiting beliefs, you must consistently affirm their opposite. If your mind says, money is hard, answer, money flows easily when I create value. If it says, I don't deserve wealth, counter it with, I am worthy of abundance because I contribute to it. Speak it, feel it, repeat it. Each declaration is like a keystroke rewriting your subconscious code. Over time, that code becomes your default operating system. The moment you stop identifying with your limiting beliefs, they lose power. You realize they were never you, just mental habits you've outgrown. You can observe them without obeying them. That's freedom. That's when you start making choices from expansion, not protection. You stop playing defense with life and start building offense, creating wealth not to prove your worth, but to express your potential. When your beliefs align with abundance, your actions follow naturally. You make bolder moves. You attract better opportunities. You negotiate with confidence because your subconscious is no longer whispering that you might fail. And people feel that energy. They trust it. They invest in it because wealth doesn't begin with money. It begins with mindset. So if you truly want to break the scarcity loop, start here. Refuse to repeat the thoughts that built it. Build new thoughts, new associations, new emotional memories. And with every conscious choice, your mind begins to remember its true nature. Limitless, creative, and prosperous by design. Topic 3. The power of self-image. Becoming the person who naturally attracts wealth. Here's a truth that almost no one tells you. Your bank account is a reflection of your self-image. Not your intelligence, not your luck, not your education, your internal identity. Because no matter how many techniques you learn or opportunities you find, you will never rise above the image you hold of yourself. You can only receive what you subconsciously believe you deserve. That's why the world's wealthiest individuals, from Richard Branson to Oprah Winfrey, all mastered the same invisible art. The art of seeing themselves as prosperous long before the evidence appeared. Self-image is the foundation of your entire reality. It's the inner portrait you carry, the automatic mental movie that plays every time you make a decision, take a risk, or interact with money. And the fascinating part is this: your brain is wired to remain consistent with that movie. If your self-image says, I'm just surviving, your subconscious will sabotage any situation that contradicts that story. You'll unconsciously spend, procrastinate, or downplay your worth just to return to the familiar level of comfort. But when your self-image says, I am abundant, capable, and worthy of wealth, your behavior starts to align. Confidence replaces hesitation. Vision replaces doubt. That's when the outer world begins to bend toward your new inner truth. The psychologist Maxwell Maltz, author of Psycho-Cybernetics, discovered that humans operate like guided missiles. Once your mind has a clear picture of who you are, it automatically adjusts your thoughts, actions, and emotions to stay consistent with that image. Change the picture, and you change the trajectory. That's why visualization, affirmations, and rituals work. Not because of magic, but because they rewrite your identity code. You're feeding your subconscious a new target to lock onto. Let's bring this concept to life. Think of Arnold Schwarzenegger before he became famous. When he was a poor immigrant with broken English, he already saw himself as a Hollywood star and a successful businessman. He would look in the mirror and see the future version of himself. He rehearsed it mentally, emotionally, and physically until reality had no choice but to catch up. His self-image led his destiny. He often said, "The mind is the limit. As long as the mind can envision the fact that you can do something, you can do it." That's not ego. That's neuroprogramming in its purest form. So, how do you shift your self-image to think like a millionaire? You start by noticing how you talk to yourself and about yourself. Do you speak as someone who's waiting for success or someone who's embodying it now? Millionaires don't say, "I hope things work out." They say, "I'll find a way." That language isn't motivational fluff. It's identity reinforcement. Every word carries frequency. And over time, those frequencies form beliefs, and those beliefs sculpt your self-image. Here's the powerful secret. The subconscious doesn't respond to who you want to be. It responds to who you believe you are right now. So, the key is not to pretend you're wealthy, but to become the person who naturally creates wealth. That means adopting millionaire behaviors, not because you're faking it, but because you're aligning your outer actions with your desired inner identity. If your goal is financial freedom, start making decisions like someone who values their time and energy. If your goal is leadership, carry yourself as someone who inspires trust and respect. Each consistent act reinforces your new self-image. Neuroscience confirms this through a concept called Hebbian learning. Neurons that fire together, wire together. When you repeatedly think and act from your desired identity, your brain literally strengthens those neural pathways. Over time, this becomes your new automatic mode of being. You no longer need to try to think wealthy. You are wealthy in consciousness, and the external results follow. That's why lasting change never comes from forced willpower. It comes from identity alignment. You might wonder, but what if I don't believe it yet? That's okay. Every transformation begins with a gap between who you are and who you're becoming. The key is emotional repetition. Feel the energy of that future version of you. Visualize them waking up, making decisions, walking with confidence. How would they talk? Dress, spend, save, lead? The more vividly you rehearse that, the faster your subconscious begins to accept it as truth. Because your subconscious doesn't differentiate between imagined and real experiences. It only records emotionally charged data. Let's look at a real-world example. When Jeff Bezos launched Amazon, most people saw him as just another online bookseller. But in his mind, he wasn't building a bookstore. He was building the everything store. His self-image wasn't tied to current circumstances. It was tied to his inner vision. And that vision, that unshakable internal identity, guided every decision he made, even when logic said it wouldn't work. The result? He didn't grow into his self-image. His self-image created his empire. And here's something essential to understand. Wealth doesn't amplify who you wish you were. It amplifies who you already believe yourself to be. That's why it's so important to do this inner work. Without it, financial success can feel unstable or even self-destructive. But when your self-image is rooted in clarity, purpose, and emotional maturity, wealth becomes an expression of balance, not ego. Every morning, stand before a mirror and speak to yourself from your millionaire identity, not as an affirmation to convince yourself, but as a declaration of truth. Say, I am abundant, I create value, I attract wealth by being aligned with my purpose. Feel it as real, because when you start feeling like the person you want to become, your vibration shifts instantly, and the universe, or if you prefer, the quantum field, begins matching your new frequency with opportunities that resonate. Your self-image is the magnet of your life. It determines what you notice, what you attract, and what you allow. The more you expand it, the more the world expands with you. So stop waiting for proof to believe. Believe first, and let reality rearrange itself to fit your new identity. Because when you truly see yourself as prosperous, the universe recognizes you as such and responds accordingly. You don't have to chase success when you become success. You don't have to force wealth when you embody wealth. The moment you shift your inner picture, everything begins to mirror it back. And that's the quiet secret behind every self-made millionaire. Before they had it, they already were it. Topic 4. Mastering emotional intelligence, the secret energy of prosperity. If there's one skill that silently determines who thrives financially and who constantly struggles, it's not intelligence, education, or strategy. It's emotional mastery. Because your emotions are the invisible force behind every financial decision you make. They dictate when you take risks, when you hold back, when you negotiate, when you spend, and when you sabotage. Wealth isn't built by chance. It's built by emotional discipline. The difference between those who build empires and those who live in constant financial survival isn't opportunity. It's how they manage their emotional energy when pressure, uncertainty, and temptation hit. Think about it. How many people have made impulsive decisions driven by fear? Selling at the wrong time, quitting too early, avoiding opportunities that could have changed everything. Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of failure. These emotions shape financial destiny far more than market trends ever will. The emotionally intelligent individual learns to recognize these internal storms and still act from vision, not reaction. They understand that emotions are data, not dictators. They listen to what their emotions reveal, but they refuse to let them drive the car. Every emotion has an energetic frequency that either expands or contracts your ability to perceive possibility. Fear narrows your focus. Gratitude widens it. Anxiety pushes opportunities away. Calm attracts clarity. When you learn to regulate your internal state, your external world begins to respond differently. You stop reacting to circumstances and start influencing them. This is what true wealth creators do. They use emotion as a compass, not a cage. Let's look at Warren Buffett again, often called the Oracle of Omaha. His genius isn't just his analytical ability, it's his emotional stability. In moments when the world panics, Buffett remains composed. He famously said, "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful." That statement isn't about arrogance. It's emotional awareness turned into strategy. He knows that fear distorts logic and greed blinds judgment. So he observes both in himself and others, and then acts from emotional neutrality. That is the superpower of prosperity, the ability to stay centered while the world oscillates between extremes. Neuroscience confirms what the great investors, entrepreneurs, and visionaries have always known. When you're emotionally hijacked, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic and long-term planning, shuts down. You literally lose access to clear thinking. That's why emotional reactivity leads to poor financial outcomes. Whether it's panic selling an investment, overspending to feel significant, or avoiding conversations about money, emotional turbulence clouds perception. Emotional mastery restores it. Let's make it practical. Emotional intelligence begins with self-awareness. The next time you face a financial decision, pause. Notice the feeling underneath the thought. Is it fear, impatience, excitement, or insecurity? Label it. The simple act of naming an emotion activates the rational brain and lowers its intensity. Then, breathe. Deep, intentional breaths signal safety to your nervous system. From that state, you can respond instead of react. Millionaires don't make major decisions from emotional chaos. They know that emotion can be felt fully but expressed wisely. Tony Robbins often says that emotion is the ultimate resource. It's not about eliminating emotions, it's about transforming them into momentum. Think of Richard Branson. His businesses are fueled by passion, not pressure. He channels enthusiasm, curiosity, and adventure into every decision. That's emotional mastery, too. Positive emotions expand your creative capacity and your risk tolerance, which are both essential for wealth creation. When you align excitement with calculated action, you create flow, the psychological state where results accelerate naturally. But emotional intelligence goes beyond individual success. It shapes how you relate to people. Money flows through relationships, partnerships, teams, clients, investors. If your emotions control you, those relationships suffer. But when you can read others' emotions, empathize, and communicate with composure, opportunities multiply. People trust calm energy. They invest in stability. Leaders who embody emotional control magnetize collaboration and loyalty, and wealth follows them as a natural consequence. Emotional mastery also means rewriting your relationship with uncertainty. The path to prosperity will test your patience. There will be delays, rejections, unexpected turns. Most people crumble under emotional weight because they expect linear progress. Millionaires thrive because they've trained emotional resilience. They understand that setbacks are feedback, not failure. They ride the waves of change without losing focus. Each challenge becomes emotional training, proof of growth, not punishment. You can cultivate this same mastery. Start treating every emotional trigger as a mirror. When fear appears, it's showing you where trust is missing. When envy appears, it's showing you where desire is repressed. When anger arises, it's showing you where boundaries need reinforcement. When you decode the message behind your emotions, you turn them into teachers instead of saboteurs. And that's when emotional energy becomes creative power. Another essential part of emotional intelligence is gratitude, not as a cliché, but as an energetic recalibration. Gratitude activates the parasympathetic nervous system, lowering stress and enhancing clarity. That's why the wealthiest and most fulfilled individuals begin and end their days with gratitude practices. It's not sentimental. It's strategic. You can't create abundance from resentment or fear. You can only create it from appreciation and trust. When you feel grateful for what you already have, your brain shifts into a state of sufficiency. And from that emotional base, you make wiser financial moves. Remember this: wealth amplifies who you already are emotionally. If you're anxious, more money makes you more anxious. If you're grounded, more money gives you more peace. That's why emotional mastery must precede financial mastery. The universe will not give you more of what you want. It will give you more of what you are. If you want to attract abundance, become emotionally abundant first. Practice calm under pressure, patience in process, gratitude in waiting, and confidence in decision-making. You're not just building wealth, you're building the emotional architecture to sustain it. When you reach that level of mastery, money stops being a source of stress and becomes a tool of creation. You move from chasing wealth to commanding it, from fearing loss to trusting expansion, from reacting to life to designing it. That's the hidden secret behind every self-made millionaire. Not luck, not genius, but emotional intelligence refined through awareness, patience, and power over self. Topic 5. Building the millionaire habits that rewire your brain for success. Every habit you repeat, every small, seemingly insignificant action is sculpting the architecture of your brain. You're literally wiring your future with every thought, every choice, every emotional reaction. And that's not a metaphor. It's neuroscience. The wealth you attract, the opportunities you notice, the results you create, they all originate in one place: the neural patterns you reinforce daily. Millionaires don't just work harder. They think differently because their brains are organized around abundance, focus, and creation. Their habits aren't random. They're neurological design in motion. Let's start with a fundamental truth. The brain doesn't care whether a habit helps or harms you. It only cares about what's repeated. Repetition is the language of the subconscious mind. Whatever you do consistently becomes wired as your automatic identity. That's why so many people struggle to break free from financial struggle. Their daily actions keep reinforcing the same neural circuits of scarcity. They wake up thinking about what's missing. They talk about what they can't afford. They feel anxious about the future. And each repetition strengthens that emotional pattern. Over time, those neural pathways become highways of thought, firing automatically, shaping perception before awareness even catches up. Now, here's where it gets powerful. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself, is your greatest ally in transformation. Every time you think, feel, or act differently, you're literally rewiring your brain. You're carving new neural grooves that signal new possibilities. When you consistently pair action with emotion, for example, gratitude with financial planning or confidence with decision-making, you amplify learning. Emotion is the glue that makes neural connections stick. That's why passion, excitement, and even discomfort are so vital for growth. They mark experiences as important to the brain. Think of your mind as a muscle that strengthens whatever it practices. If you practice worry, you build the circuitry of worry. If you practice confidence, you build the circuitry of confidence. Millionaire thinking is the result of disciplined mental training. It's not about luck or being born for success. It's about consistency, repetition of thought patterns that favor abundance. When you decide every day to act from vision instead of fear, your neural map changes. Over time, your default responses shift from doubt to certainty, from hesitation to initiative. You start perceiving opportunities your old mindset would have filtered out. Let's bring this into the real world. When Thomas Edison was inventing the light bulb, he didn't fail 1,000 times. He trained his brain to see each attempt as data. That's cognitive flexibility, a key trait in prosperous minds. His repetition wasn't mechanical, it was intentional. Each experiment reinforced the neural circuits of persistence, creativity, and resilience. That's what neuroplastic success looks like. The more you act from possibility, the more your brain normalizes it. The science backs this up. Neurons that fire together, wire together. This is the golden law of brain rewiring. Every time you imagine success, visualize achievement, and take aligned action, even in small ways, you're linking thought and emotion in a way that makes abundance your new default. You're teaching your subconscious that this is who you are, and once the brain accepts an identity, it works relentlessly to keep it alive. That's why changing your life starts with changing your habits, because habits are how identity becomes reality. Here's where most people go wrong. They try to force massive changes overnight, but the brain resists drastic shifts. It craves consistency, not intensity. Millionaires understand this. They build rituals that anchor their minds into discipline. Morning routines, visualization sessions, reflection, gratitude journaling. Not because those acts are magical, but because they stabilize the neural architecture of success. Each repetition deepens a groove in the brain until the behavior becomes automatic. Success stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like nature. Now, imagine what happens when you combine repetition with emotion. Every time you act with enthusiasm, focus, and gratitude, dopamine floods your brain, the neurotransmitter of motivation and reward. Dopamine tells your neural circuits, "This matters. Do it again." It's the biochemical signal of reinforcement. Over time, your brain associates progress with pleasure, not pressure. That's how discipline turns into desire. That's why truly successful people often say, "I love what I do." It's not luck, it's neurochemistry aligned with purpose. But there's another layer. The subconscious mind operates 95% of your daily life. That means you're living out automated programs most of the time. Habits, emotions, reactions, all stored as learned neural patterns. The key to reprogramming is to interrupt the automatic. Every time you pause before reacting, you weaken an old circuit. Every time you choose awareness over impulse, you strengthen a new one. That's how old patterns dissolve, through mindful interruption and conscious repetition of new ones. Let's take Oprah Winfrey as an example again. Early in her career, she made a deliberate habit of gratitude journaling every single day. It wasn't just a positive thinking exercise, it was neurotraining. She was conditioning her brain to focus on abundance rather than lack. Over time, that daily repetition built emotional resilience and optimism that shaped her business, her relationships, and her legacy. Neuroscience would call it attentional bias. She trained her attention to filter for blessings instead of problems. That's the essence of millionaire brain wiring. Your brain doesn't grow from what you know, it grows from what you do repeatedly. So, when you practice consistency, self-reflection, and emotional regulation, your neural structure literally changes. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for focus and planning, becomes more active. The amygdala, the fear center, becomes less reactive. In other words, you gain control over your destiny, not through external control, but through internal rewiring. You might not see the results immediately, and that's okay. The brain needs time, but the compound effect of small, intentional habits is unstoppable. When you start feeding your mind with prosperous thoughts, when you practice calm decision-making, when you act with confidence even in uncertainty, the brain begins to favor those patterns. It becomes easier, more natural, more automatic. That's when success stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like identity. So, think of your habits as instructions to your brain. Every repetition says, "This is who I am." And when that identity becomes aligned with abundance, discipline, and purpose, the universe responds accordingly. That's not mysticism. That's neurobiology in harmony with human potential. The key to building a millionaire mind isn't a secret formula or lucky break. It's the daily, deliberate rewiring of your brain through repetition, emotion, and conscious action. You don't need to force success. You need to program it. One thought, one emotion, one consistent action at a time. Because when your brain becomes fluent in abundance, prosperity becomes inevitable. Topic 6. Focus, attention, and mental discipline. The neuroscience of creating wealth. If you study every self-made millionaire long enough, you'll notice a striking pattern. They all seem to live in a state of calm focus while the rest of the world drowns in noise. They don't rush, they don't chase, they direct. They understand something most people never learn. Attention is the ultimate currency of creation. Where your focus goes, energy flows, and what you consistently focus on grows. In the age of distraction, focus has become the new wealth. Because when you can command your mind, you can command your reality. From a neuroscience perspective, your attention is the most limited and powerful resource you have. The prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive center, is responsible for decision-making, planning, and self-control. But it has limited bandwidth. Every distraction, every emotional reaction, every useless notification drains it like an open app on your mental device. Millionaires protect this part of their brain like sacred territory. They know that focus is not just productivity, it's identity alignment in action. It's how you tell your brain what matters, and the brain always expands what it believes is important. Here's what's fascinating. The brain's reticular activating system acts as your internal filter. It determines which information deserves your attention based on what you emotionally prioritize. If you constantly focus on problems, your RAS will scan the world for more problems. But if you train it to focus on opportunities, solutions, and abundance, it begins filtering reality differently. Suddenly, the same environment looks richer, more connected, more full of potential, because your attention decides what's visible. This is why millionaires seem to attract success. They're not attracting it. They're perceiving it through a reprogrammed lens of attention. Let's take Elon Musk as an example again. His ability to hold mental focus on complex problems for hours, sometimes days, without emotional burnout is legendary. He's trained his brain to enter deep work states where dopamine and acetylcholine synchronize to enhance learning, creativity, and resilience. Neuroscientists call this flow, and it's not luck. It's the result of strict attention management and mental discipline. Musk doesn't multitask, he prioritizes, and that prioritization creates mental space for genius. Now, let's ground this in your own journey. Your brain's focus network functions like a spotlight. You can't illuminate everything at once. The more you spread your attention across multiple goals, fears, or opinions, the dimmer your inner light becomes. Wealth creators understand this intuitively. They choose one mission and go deep. Focus creates momentum, and momentum compounds into mastery. Every time you choose focus over distraction, you strengthen the prefrontal cortex. Every time you delay gratification, you build emotional endurance. Each disciplined act literally rewires your brain for success. But discipline isn't about restriction, it's about direction. Neuroscience shows that self-control isn't a matter of willpower, it's a matter of energy management. The prefrontal cortex can be trained through micro-habits, meditation, deep breathing, consistent routines, and mindful pauses between stimuli and response. When you do these regularly, you increase gray matter density in the brain regions responsible for focus and calm decision-making. This is why meditation has become a secret weapon for top entrepreneurs. It's mental strength training disguised as stillness. Consider Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates. He attributes much of his success to daily meditation. It helps him access clarity under stress, regulate emotion, and see patterns others miss. From a neurological view, meditation quiets the amygdala, your fear center, while strengthening the prefrontal cortex. The result? A brain wired to stay composed and strategic even in chaos. That's the real edge of a millionaire mind, calm precision in motion. But let's talk about something equally important: dopamine discipline. Dopamine is your brain's reward chemical. It motivates you to act. However, in today's digital world, constant notifications, social media, and instant gratification overload your dopamine receptors, leaving you desensitized. You lose the ability to focus deeply because your brain craves quick rewards instead of meaningful progress. Wealthy, high-performing individuals understand this biological trap. They limit their dopamine spikes. No endless scrolling, no compulsive checking, because they know their focus determines their fortune. They reserve dopamine for long-term creation, not short-term distraction. Steve Jobs was famous for this level of discipline. His minimalist lifestyle wasn't aesthetic, it was neurological strategy. He removed clutter from his environment to reduce cognitive noise. Each object, each decision, each routine was designed to preserve mental energy for creation. That's the secret most people miss. Environment dictates focus. If your surroundings are chaotic, your attention fragments. When your environment supports clarity, your brain can perform at genius levels. Now imagine your mind as a lens. When that lens is scattered, your energy diffuses. When it's focused, it ignites. That's the neuroscience of success. Focus concentrates your mental energy so strongly that it reshapes your external world. You start seeing results not because the world changes, but because you do. Your neural networks synchronize into coherence, creating what quantum physicists call observational alignment. Your perception begins attracting matching experiences. It's not mysticism, it's cognitive resonance. The brain literally filters for evidence that supports your dominant focus. But even the most focused mind needs emotional regulation to stay consistent. This is where mental discipline becomes emotional intelligence in action. When stress rises, blood flow shifts from the prefrontal cortex to the limbic system, the emotional brain. That's when impulsive decisions happen. Millionaires train for this moment. They practice emotional recovery, deep breathing, strategic breaks, physical exercise, all designed to restore neural balance. This ability to reset quickly is what keeps them in long-term control. They don't fight stress, they master recovery from it. You can train the same capacity. Start by scheduling periods of deep work, 90-minute sessions of undistracted creation, followed by deliberate rest. Neuroscience shows that the brain cycles naturally between focus and restoration. Respect that rhythm. Build it into your life. The result? Sustained high performance without burnout. This is how mental discipline becomes sustainable wealth energy. Focus and attention are not just productivity tools. They are the architecture of prosperity. They determine what opportunities you notice, what problems you solve, and how you handle uncertainty. When you train your mind to sustain focus, resist emotional hijack, and channel dopamine into long-term creation, your entire neural system begins working for your vision, not against it. And that's when something extraordinary happens. Wealth stops being a goal and becomes a byproduct of mental coherence. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions operate in harmony. You no longer chase opportunities, you magnetize them. Because a focused mind is the most powerful force in the universe. Once directed with purpose, it bends reality itself. Topic 7. The quantum shift. Aligning thoughts, emotions, and actions for maximum prosperity. There's a moment, usually after years of struggle, when a person suddenly clicks, when they realize success was never about chasing, but aligning. It's the moment when thought, emotion, and action synchronize so perfectly that life seems to move with you instead of against you. That moment is what I call the quantum shift. It's when your inner frequency matches the reality you've been trying to create. And once that happens, prosperity becomes effortless. Not because the outer world changed, but because you did. Let's step into the science for a moment. Quantum physics tells us that everything in the universe is energy, vibrating, oscillating, and responding to frequency. Your thoughts produce electromagnetic fields, your emotions amplify those fields, and your actions stabilize them into physical outcomes. You are, quite literally, a transmitter of frequency, sending out energetic signals that the universe mirrors back as experiences, people, and opportunities. When your thoughts say one thing, your emotions feel another, and your actions do something else, your signal becomes scrambled. But when all three align in coherence, thought, emotion, action, your energy becomes laser-focused. You don't chase success, you broadcast it. You don't attract wealth, you resonate with it. Neuroscience confirms this from another angle. Every thought releases neurochemicals that generate emotional states, which in turn influence behavior. This creates a feedback loop between mind, body, and environment. If your dominant thoughts are of lack, fear, or stress, your brain releases cortisol and adrenaline, the chemistry of survival. Your focus narrows. You become reactive instead of creative. But when you think in terms of abundance, gratitude, and purpose, your brain releases dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, the chemistry of growth and connection. Your perception expands. You begin to see opportunities that were invisible before. Your physiology aligns with prosperity. Millionaires and visionary creators live from this quantum alignment, whether they realize it or not. They think in abundance, they feel success before it arrives, and they act in ways that confirm their belief. This coherence sends a consistent, energetic signal to the universe, one that commands outcomes instead of begging for them. Take Oprah Winfrey again. Long before she had wealth, she lived and worked as if abundance was her natural state. She once said, "The way you think creates reality for yourself." That wasn't a metaphor. It was her formula. She mastered the quantum equation of success. Thoughts direct energy, emotions amplify it, and actions anchor it into form. Here's where it becomes truly life-changing. The quantum field, or what you might call the field of infinite potential, doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. If your thoughts say, "I want wealth," but your emotions vibrate fear and your actions reveal doubt, your frequency is misaligned. The field reads the dominant vibration, not your wish. That's why affirmations alone don't work. You can't affirm abundance while feeling scarcity. The universe doesn't respond to words, it responds to coherence. So, how do you achieve coherence? By bringing your internal world into emotional and energetic harmony. Start with awareness. Every time you think about success, pause and feel what your body is broadcasting. Do you feel tense, doubtful, or undeserving? Those emotions are signals that your frequency is out of tune. To realign, breathe deeply and choose a different emotional tone. Gratitude is the fastest recalibration tool. When you feel grateful, not think, but feel, you instantly elevate your vibration to match abundance. Gratitude tells your subconscious, I already have enough, and from that frequency, you attract more. Let's tie this to the biology of belief. Dr. Joe Dispenza's research shows that when thought and emotion align, they create electromagnetic coherence measurable by scientific instruments. The heart emits a powerful electromagnetic field, one that changes depending on your emotional state. Positive emotions produce smooth, harmonious waves, while negative emotions create erratic ones. When you sustain elevated emotions like joy, gratitude, and purpose, your heart and brain synchronize. This is heart-brain coherence, the physiological foundation of the quantum shift. It's the moment when the invisible becomes magnetic. Millionaires who operate from this space often describe it as flow. They feel guided. Synchronicities appear, meetings, ideas, chances that seem almost supernatural. But it's not magic, it's physics. When your inner state stabilizes, your external world organizes around it. The universe becomes a mirror reflecting your level of alignment. That's why inner chaos produces outer confusion, and inner clarity creates outer results. Now, let's make it practical. Alignment begins with small, consistent practices that reprogram your vibration. Each morning, visualize your goals not as distant desires, but as memories from the future. Feel the emotions of already having achieved them. Don't just imagine the car, the home, the freedom. Imagine the calm confidence, the gratitude, the peace. Those feelings send the signal that says, this reality exists for me. Then act as if that's true. Take inspired action, not rushed or desperate, but aligned. Every step you take while feeling abundant reinforces the neural and energetic patterns of success. Jeff Bezos once said, all of my best decisions in business and life have been made with heart, intuition, and guts. That's alignment in motion, logic guided by inner coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions unite, you stop needing guarantees. You start moving with trust. And that trust, that emotional conviction, becomes the frequency of inevitability. The universe bends to people who radiate certainty. But here's something equally powerful. Alignment isn't static. It's a daily practice. You can fall out of coherence through fear, doubt, or stress, and that's okay. The goal is not perfection, it's awareness. The moment you notice misalignment, you have the power to recalibrate. Your breathing, your focus, your gratitude, they are your tuning tools. You are both the musician and the instrument in this symphony of creation. When your thoughts are clear, your emotions elevated, and your actions aligned, you access what quantum scientists call wave collapse. Potential becomes reality. The future you once imagined steps into the present, and you realize prosperity was never something to chase. It was something to match. This is the ultimate realization of the millionaire mind. Wealth is coherence. Prosperity is resonance. Success is alignment. Once you master that inner frequency, the world simply echoes it back, effortlessly, elegantly, and endlessly. Topic 8. Time, patience, and the long game. How millionaires think beyond the moment. One of the greatest differences between those who merely dream of wealth and those who build it is how they perceive time. Most people think in days. Millionaires think in decades. Most people chase quick wins. Millionaires engineer long-term momentum. They understand something deeply psychological and profoundly spiritual. That prosperity is not an event. It's a process. And that process rewards those who can master patience, discipline, and strategic delay. Because in the world of wealth creation, time is not the enemy, it's the amplifier. Let's begin with the psychology of patience. The human brain is wired for instant gratification. Thousands of years ago, that impulse was essential for survival. Eat when you can, rest when you can, act fast before danger strikes. But in the modern world, that same instinct works against long-term prosperity. Every time you choose short-term comfort over long-term growth, Your brain's reward system releases a tiny hit of dopamine, the pleasure chemical. The problem is that dopamine from instant gratification fades quickly, leaving you craving more. The result? You stay stuck in a loop of micro-rewards, never giving your brain the space to build the neural architecture for sustained success. Millionaires train themselves out of that loop. They've learned to redirect their dopamine toward progress, not pleasure. They understand that real satisfaction comes from anticipation, not instant completion. Neuroscientists call this delayed reward conditioning, the process of rewiring your brain to associate pleasure with patience. It's the same mechanism that allows an investor to hold a stock during volatility or an entrepreneur to work for years without seeing immediate payoff. Over time, this emotional resilience becomes a competitive advantage that the impatient will never understand. Take Warren Buffett, for example. He often says, "The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient." But behind that quote lies a deep neurological truth. Buffett's genius isn't only analytical, it's emotional. He has trained his brain to stay calm through uncertainty, to see beyond daily fluctuations and think in terms of decades. That long-term emotional stability is why compounding, the most powerful force in finance, according to Einstein, works for him so magnificently. Patience multiplies wealth because it multiplies time. And the human mind, when aligned with time instead of rushing against it, becomes unstoppable. Now, let's connect this to neuroscience. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning and foresight, is also the seat of patience. It allows you to visualize future rewards and regulate impulses that crave immediate gratification. But here's the fascinating part. You can train it. Meditation, visualization, and consistent goal setting strengthen this region, increasing your capacity for delayed gratification. Each time you resist a quick dopamine hit, whether it's checking your phone or overspending, you're literally reinforcing neural circuits of discipline. The more you repeat that behavior, the easier patience becomes. Over time, your emotional system learns to find joy in the process, not just the result. Jeff Bezos once said, "We're willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time." That sentence captures the essence of the long game. Amazon wasn't built for quarterly applause. It was designed for generational impact. Bezos structured his company around the psychology of patience. He understood that compounding doesn't just happen with money, it happens with decisions, skills, relationships, and reputation. Every year of consistent focus multiplies the results of the year before, and this exponential growth only reveals itself to those who stay long enough to witness it. Patience, however, doesn't mean inaction. Millionaires don't wait passively. They act with deliberate persistence. They take micro steps daily, knowing that every small effort compounds. Neuroscience calls this temporal consistency, the ability to sustain aligned action toward a distant reward. It's the mental muscle that separates discipline from obsession. Because obsession burns out, patience compounds. The key is emotional balance, working with intensity, but without attachment to immediate outcomes. Think of it this way. Impatience lives in the body as stress, tension, and fear. It tells the brain, "We're running out of time." Patience, on the other hand, communicates safety. It signals the nervous system that growth is unfolding, that time is on your side. This relaxed alertness allows creativity, intuition, and higher decision-making to emerge. That's why the calm investor often outperforms the anxious genius. Their biochemistry is working for them, not against them. Their brain is producing serotonin and GABA, chemicals that stabilize mood and sustain focus, instead of cortisol and adrenaline, which cloud judgment. We can see this pattern in all areas of prosperity. The leader who patiently develops their team instead of replacing them quickly builds a culture of trust. The entrepreneur who refines their product over years instead of chasing trends creates timeless value. The individual who saves and invests consistently instead of seeking instant returns builds freedom, while others build frustration. In every example, patience is not passive, it's power under control. The long game also requires emotional faith, the ability to believe in unseen progress. When you can hold your vision steady while results seem slow, you align with one of the universe's most profound laws. Momentum is invisible until it's unstoppable. Every habit, every choice, every repetition accumulates behind the scenes until it suddenly appears as overnight success. But nothing about it is overnight. It's the compound effect of invisible consistency meeting perfect timing. To cultivate this mindset, remind yourself that time is a partner, not a threat. Every day you operate with patience, your brain strengthens its neural networks for resilience and foresight. You become more strategic, less reactive, more intuitive, less fearful. That's what high-level wealth consciousness looks like. Mental expansion through emotional regulation. You stop being a victim of time and become its architect. The wealthiest people on earth don't rush time. They collaborate with it. They know that prosperity unfolds in seasons: planting, nurturing, harvesting, and resting. And they honor each phase with presence, not panic. That's why they appear calm, even under pressure. Their relationship with time is built on trust, not urgency. So remember this: the impatient mind looks for evidence. The prosperous mind builds it. Your job isn't to rush the process, but to stay aligned with it. Every day you act with patience, focus, and faith, you are compounding the unseen, the neural, emotional, and energetic patterns that eventually solidify into visible abundance. In the quantum realm, nothing is wasted. Every second of patience is energy stored for future explosion. And when the time comes, all that invisible momentum will reveal itself, not as luck, but as mastery. Because in the end, the secret to millionaire thinking is not speed, it's endurance. Success is not about how fast you move, but how long you can stay consistent while others quit. Patience is not waiting, it's winning slowly. And when you learn to master time, time begins to serve you. Topic 9. Environment, energy, and association. How surroundings shape the millionaire mind. There's an old saying, show me your environment, and I'll show you your future. It may sound simple, but neuroscience and quantum physics both confirm what the wise have known for centuries. Your surroundings don't just reflect your mindset, they program it. Every sound you hear, every space you inhabit, every person you spend time with is shaping your neural circuits, your energy, and ultimately your destiny. The truth is, success is rarely an individual act. It's an energetic ecosystem. Your brain is a mirror of your environment. It constantly scans for cues about what's normal, possible, and safe. If your environment reinforces scarcity, chaos, and limitation, your subconscious accepts those patterns as reality. But if your surroundings vibrate with growth, discipline, and abundance, your brain begins to calibrate to that new standard. It's like tuning a radio. Whatever frequency you're surrounded by becomes the one you subconsciously broadcast. Neuroscience calls this neural mirroring. Your brain has mirror neurons that automatically copy the emotional and behavioral patterns of the people around you. That's why spending time with high-energy, purposeful individuals can elevate your own vibration. Your mind literally learns by resonance. And it's also why negativity is contagious. Energy is data, and your nervous system is the receiver. The more you expose yourself to conversations of fear, gossip, or victimhood, the more your subconscious wires for those same vibrations. Every successful person in history understood this instinctively. Andrew Carnegie surrounded himself with forward thinkers. Oprah Winfrey built an environment of gratitude, creativity, and excellence. Steve Jobs designed minimalist spaces not for aesthetics alone, but to quiet the mind and allow visionary clarity. They all knew that environment shapes behavior, and behavior shapes destiny. Now, let's look at the science beneath the philosophy. Your surroundings trigger your brain's reticular activating system, the filter that decides what information deserves focus. If your environment constantly bombards you with stress signals, clutter, noise, negative media, pessimistic conversations, your RAS prioritizes survival over creativity. You start noticing what could go wrong instead of what could go right. But if you intentionally design your environment to reinforce prosperity, order, light, beauty, uplifting input, your RAS learns to seek growth and possibility. You literally reprogram your perception. This is why changing your environment can feel like changing your life overnight. You're not escaping reality, you're upgrading your neural context. Think about it. When you walk into a luxury hotel, a serene beach, or an inspiring workspace, notice how your body reacts. Your breathing slows, your posture straightens, your thoughts become more intentional. That's not imagination, that's biology. Your nervous system is responding to signals of abundance and harmony. But your physical environment is only one layer. The people you associate with form an even more powerful energetic field. You become the emotional average of those around you. Their conversations shape your expectations. Their habits influence your standards. Their energy either fuels or drains your vision. Millionaires protect their associations as fiercely as their investments. They don't avoid people out of arrogance, they do it out of awareness. They understand that proximity is power and energy is contagious. Let's take an example from business history. When Bill Gates and Paul Allen started Microsoft, they weren't surrounded by luxury or fame. What they were surrounded by was obsession, by ideas, creativity, and visionaries who believed in the impossible. The environment they created in that small garage pulsed with innovation and belief. That collective energy became the foundation for a multi-billion-dollar empire. Success began as shared frequency before it became shared profit. But this principle isn't limited to business. In your personal life too, energy management is wealth management. If your relationships constantly pull you back into doubt, you'll find yourself exhausting your willpower just to stay positive. But when you surround yourself with people who celebrate your progress, challenge your limits, and hold you accountable to your potential, your mind expands naturally. Their energy becomes the mirror that reflects the best in you. Energetically speaking, everything around you carries vibration, colors, sounds, even objects. That's why minimalist and intentional living practices are so transformative. When you remove what no longer resonates, you create space for abundance to flow. This isn't superstition, it's physics. Energy can't flow through clutter, whether physical or emotional. Clean environments promote mental clarity because your brain interprets order as safety, and safety frees creativity. There's also a quantum element to association. When two people share strong emotional resonance, their brain waves and heart rhythms begin to synchronize, a phenomenon known as neural entrainment. This explains why spending time with inspiring people often leaves you feeling uplifted or clear-minded. You're not just influenced, you're literally entrained to a higher frequency. Imagine what happens when you build an entire environment like that. Spaces, routines, and relationships that vibrate at the level of prosperity. You don't have to motivate yourself anymore. You simply live inside a system that constantly reinforces who you're becoming. So, how do you build such an environment? Start by auditing your spaces and relationships. Ask yourself, does this person, place, or habit expand me or drain me? If it drains you, release it with gratitude. If it expands you, double your exposure. Fill your mind with voices that speak possibility. Surround yourself with symbols of wealth, not to show off, but to signal your subconscious that abundance is your natural state. Curate your media, music, workspace, and even digital feeds to reflect who you're becoming, not who you were. Remember, your environment is either programming your brain for expansion or contraction. There is no neutral. Each day, it's shaping your energy blueprint, deciding whether you rise or remain the same. The moment you become intentional about your surroundings, you stop adapting to mediocrity and start evolving toward mastery. In the end, the millionaire mind isn't just something you think with, it's something you live inside of. You walk in it, breathe in it, surround yourself with it until your external world mirrors your internal vibration. Because success doesn't happen in isolation, it happens in resonance. When your environment, your energy, and your associations all vibrate at the same frequency, prosperity doesn't need to be forced. It unfolds naturally. Topic 10. The prosperity state. Living as the source of wealth, not the seeker of it. There comes a moment on the journey of success when the seeker becomes the source. When you realize wealth was never something outside to be acquired, but something within to be expressed. This is what I call the prosperity state. It's not a goal, not an achievement, but a vibration, a way of being that radiates abundance in thought, emotion, and action. When you reach this level of awareness, you stop asking, "How do I get more?" and start asking, "How can I expand what's already flowing through me?" That single shift transforms everything, because prosperity at its core is not about having, it's about being. The prosperity state is the synthesis of everything you've learned so far. The mind, the emotions, the habits, the focus, the patience, the environment. It's the realization that wealth is a mirror of your internal coherence. When your mind is clear, your emotions stable, your actions aligned, and your energy elevated, life begins to rearrange itself around your inner order. You no longer chase opportunities, they find you. You no longer struggle to prove your worth, you live as proof of it. Neuroscience describes this as neural integration. When all regions of the brain, cognitive, emotional, and intuitive, work in harmony, you experience flow. The prefrontal cortex, decision-making, the limbic system, emotion, and the cerebellum, habit, begin to operate in coherence. You feel calm yet energized, confident yet humble, ambitious yet peaceful. This is the biological equivalent of alignment, a state in which your nervous system is not fighting for survival, but expanding into creation. It's the brain's highest frequency, not stress, not fear, but coherence. In this state, your creativity, problem-solving, and intuition all amplify. You become magnetic to the very things you once thought you had to chase. Spiritually speaking, the prosperity state is when you embody the understanding that you are not separate from abundance. You are abundance expressing itself through human form. You realize that the same intelligence that orchestrates galaxies and grows forests is also operating through your breath, your thoughts, your vision. And when you align with that intelligence, when your actions are guided by gratitude and intention, prosperity flows through you effortlessly because you're no longer blocking it with fear, doubt, or resistance. Let's bring this into real-world perspective. When you look at individuals who sustain wealth, not just accumulate it, you'll notice an energy of stability, generosity, and clarity. Think of Richard Branson, who turns every business into an adventure. His wealth doesn't own him, it expresses him. Think of Oprah, whose abundance multiplies through service, or Warren Buffett, who lives in simplicity while moving billions, not because he needs less, but because he already feels full. These people have transcended the identity of the seeker. They operate from the prosperity state, where giving and receiving are one and the same. Quantum physics gives us a fascinating parallel. When two particles become entangled, they remain connected regardless of distance. A change in one affects the other instantly. The same applies to you and the field of abundance. When you live as the source, you're constantly influencing the field, not through effort, but through resonance. You send out a vibration of wholeness, and the universe mirrors it back in forms that match your frequency. Opportunities, ideas, people, and synchronicities that align perfectly with your state of being. But reaching this state isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about living each day with awareness of your energy and intention. When you catch yourself worrying, you pause and breathe. When scarcity thoughts appear, you replace them with gratitude. When you feel tempted to chase validation, you remind yourself that everything you seek is already vibrating within you. That moment of awareness, that micro shift, is how you stay in alignment. Because prosperity is not maintained through force, but through conscious maintenance of vibration. Emotionally, the prosperity state feels like peace, a grounded calmness that doesn't depend on circumstances. You no longer rise and fall with external wins or losses because your foundation is internal. You start making decisions not from fear of missing out, but from trust in divine timing. Your energy stabilizes, your relationships deepen, your creativity flourishes, and your impact expands because you're no longer leaking energy trying to control outcomes. You've become the eye of the storm, still powerful and clear. From a behavioral perspective, people in the prosperity state make different choices. They spend intentionally, not impulsively. They invest in growth, not validation. They give generously without calculating return because they understand that generosity is the return. They manage time not by urgency, but by purpose. Their habits serve their higher identity, not their insecurities. Every decision becomes an act of alignment. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop needing wealth, wealth rushes toward you. Because need creates resistance. It says, I don't have. But alignment says, I already am. The universe doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to certainty. When you live as the source of abundance, you become an energetic magnet. Your frequency says, I am whole. And everything that matches wholeness finds you. That's the essence of manifestation. Not chasing what's missing, but radiating what's complete. In neuroscience terms, this is the ultimate rewiring. You've replaced the neural patterns of survival with patterns of creation. The emotional loops of fear and scarcity have been overridden by gratitude and vision. The old subconscious identity, the one that thought wealth was something to earn, dissolves. In its place emerges a new program. I am abundance. I am creation. I am flow. And from that state, life becomes a mirror reflecting your internal abundance into physical form. So, what does living as the source mean in practical terms? It means walking through life knowing that every action is creative, every word, every emotion, every intention plants a seed in the field of reality. You become mindful of what you give attention to because you know it expands. You lead with gratitude, act with clarity, and receive with grace. And slowly, without trying, your outer world transforms into a living reflection of your inner prosperity. In the end, this is the ultimate secret of the millionaire mind. Wealth is not achieved. It is remembered. It's the natural state you return to when fear and doubt are cleared away. You were never meant to chase abundance. You were meant to channel it. Because the universe doesn't reward effort. It rewards alignment. And when you live as the source of wealth, prosperity becomes your nature, not your goal. If this message resonated with you, if it awakened something deep inside, then this is your moment to take aligned action. Subscribe to the Success and Prosperity Code channel to continue reprogramming your mind for wealth, abundance, and elevated consciousness. Like this video if it inspired you, share it with someone who needs to remember their inner power, and comment below what living as the source means to you. Because this isn't just a channel, it's a movement of minds remembering who they are, limitless, prosperous, and unstoppable.